On this episode of the Reckless Wrench Garage, we're going to install a bigger fuel cell in the Ranger and a pretty useless tire carrier. Stick around, it's going to be fun. Welcome back to the Reckless Wrench Garage. On this episode, we are back on the Ranger, and I just wanted to show you a couple of little projects I worked on. Well, they were big projects, but a couple of the projects that I worked on before we go out and go shock tuning. In the previous episode where I put the bypass shocks on, I didn't show all the work that went into getting that set up before I actually installed those shocks. With the trailing arms, I'm able to get a lot more travel in the back with the same size shock, but I wanted to make sure I was able to balance that travel a little bit. I didn't want to have 4 inches of up travel and then 16 inches of down travel. It would not have worked very well going fast. So what I needed to do to get a more balanced travel is increase my up travel, and to do that, there was multiple things that had to happen. The very first thing that was preventing up travel was my fuel cell. So the fuel cell that I was running prior is a plastic pancake style. It started warping and leaking in the sun. I tried resealing it and it was just not happening, but it was very large and flat, so it went pretty far forward in the chassis. So I didn't want to use that existing pancake cell because to get more up travel, I would have to either move it higher in the chassis or move it in front of the axle, which neither of those I really wanted to do. So what I ended up doing is I found a 32-gallon fuel cell that was narrow enough to fit between the frame rails, a little bit taller, but it wasn't as deep, so I would be able to push my axle higher up on up travel. To move my fuel cell further back, I needed to change my sway bar. And then it just kind of like, it's always one thing leads to another. Once I move the sway bar, then I move the bump stops, so on and so forth. But it was all kind of expected just to get more up travel. I am pretty happy that I'm changing the fuel cell out because I'm getting 10 more gallons of fuel capacity, and the way I like to drive this thing, I definitely need all the fuel I could hold. The weight increase is going to be actually beneficial because my rear end is definitely significantly lighter than the front, so it will help with my front rear weight bias, which is always a plus. Just a heads up to you guys, if you are mounting a fuel cell, keep in mind, there's going to be a couple 100 pounds of liquid moving around in there, and they call it a liquid hammer. So you slam on the brakes or you jump it or you flop, you're going to have hundreds of pounds of fluid slamming one way or another. So you want to make sure that thing's very secure where it's at and it's not going to go anywhere. Once I got the sway bar and the fuel cell resituated, I needed to figure out where to put my spare tire. So I had this idea in my head to put the spare tire kind of on the back, but I wanted access to the fuel cell or anything that was in there, so I needed a way to raise and lower it. I came up with this idea in my head to make a basket that would sit on top of the chassis in the back that I could raise and lower and be able to access the fuel cell and any sort of like spare tools or parts that I have in the back. So this is me building all that right here. I'm making a hoop that's going to go around half of the spare tire, so it's 37-inch spare tire. So what I did, I used masking tape, very professional level stuff. Drew kind of half of it out on my garage floor, and then using a Harbor Freight square and a protractor and rulers, you get some basic measurements, and I then just doubled all of that to make a complete hoop. And then hopefully this will be a perfect little bend that will go halfway around this tire. I made the tire hold down by welding some 3/4 inch all thread inside a piece of tubing. I wanted to be able to take the tire nut on and off without tools, so I welded the nut inside a tube and then bent a set of handlebars to weld on. To secure the basket in the down position, I used some Jeep hood latches from the parts aisle, and they were only $5 each. The finishing touches I added to the tire carrier are some 60-pound gas struts to assist when I open it, and they also hold it up when I'm refueling. Just we're on the same page, this tire basket is definitely not made to make putting this on and off any easier. It's just to hold the tire and give me access to the fuel cell. So we're going to see how hard it is for one person to put this tire up there. So my little spare tire basket thingy actually kind of worked out pretty well. I'm kind of surprised myself. Those little gas struts are awesome addition to raise and lower that thing. It's almost effortless, and I got a shout out to Wheel Every Weekend. They have a YouTube and Instagram. You guys should check them out. But I got the idea to use those gas struts from their ridiculous spare tire carrier that they built. So definitely check them out. But the last little cherry on top of this whole project is this nice little backup camera that I threw on the back. So now that the spare tire's located where it's at, I have no rearward visibility whatsoever, especially if I'm strapped in. I can't see anything back there. So I go to Amazon, I find this $30 backup camera, and this thing is actually really awesome. I'm really surprised at how well it works for $30. It came with a super long cord, this little monitor that I installed onto the dash, and I have it on a switch, so if, when I need it, I just turn it on. Or if I'm driving and I want to see if anyone's tailgating me, I just flip that thing on too. And yeah, it's actually really nice so far. I've really enjoyed having it. So I'll put a link in the description down below if you want one of those. For 30 bucks, I would buy it again for sure. So that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Click that like button, hit the subscribe to see more projects coming soon from us. And until next time, stay reckless.